to... Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Welcome on a Tuesday afternoon to what I think is going to be a very exciting time together. Before we do get started, I want to just do a whip around the room to hear which schools are here so we can celebrate your dedication this afternoon. So we'll start right here. Hubert Humphrey, Valle Vista, Mountain View, Dennis Chavez, Oñate Elementary, Susie Reyes Marmon, Wary Elementary, Chamisa Elementary, Comanche, Barcelona Elementary, Governor Bent. Did I skip anybody? Welcome to all of you. Give yourselves a big hand. Thank you all for being here very much. We have a presentation and an expert panel from 3 dedicated schools, which we will introduce in just a moment. But before we get started, I want to introduce 2 pioneers in the work of Genius Hour that you will hear about this afternoon. Our superintendent, Dr. Gabriela Blakey, who worked several years ago to really roll out this program in collaboration with the Albuquerque Teachers Federation and Dr. Ellen Bernstein. So let's hear from them to get us started. Dr. Blakey.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. We're also videotaping this, so if you turn around and wave to all of the visitors, then they'll be sad they didn't get to see it live. Thank you all really for being here. If you are familiar with Genius Hour, the concept of Genius Hour started after Google, the company. So the company of Google gives the employees an hour a day to put everything away and be creative in how they think about the next iteration of their work. And so it's through that then schools started looking at what happens when you give students a block of time to be creative. And there are some schools of thought that at first causes some anxiety, like, wait, unstructured time, what's going to happen? It's going to turn into chaos. But turns out when kids are able to use their brains in creative ways, it isn't chaotic. It's actually something that is very good for them and helps in all the things we do during the school day to try to get our students to develop their brains, particularly at the elementary level. So Genius Hour isn't like a in lieu of time. Think of student learning as being something that's organic, and we all learn concepts in different ways at different times during the school day and during the school year. So this allows students to have a time period a day for them to develop their own learning. Sometimes it's a passion for learning. Sometimes it's a way that they understand a concept in a deeper or different level. And sometimes it's a way in which students find a talent that they didn't know that they had. And when you really look at specifically in socioeconomic disparities amongst student groups, a lot of students, whether it be during the summer or after school, their parents have them involved in a lot of different activities. One, because then they go to sleep at night because they're tired after soccer practice. And 2 is because it's something that's good for them that we know is good for students in student learning. But not all students have the ability to have access to those things. So you start seeing a difference in learning gaps beyond what happens from bell to bell in just what students learn outside of school. So we start looking at Genius Hour as saying, well, what if we use school time to help with that learning gap of some students having access to more background knowledge, more creativity in other learning ways after the bell rings? What if all students have that accessibility? And that's kind of how Genius Hour starts. And then as Genius Hour grows and as a district evolves, we really look at Goal 4. And how is it that schools are intentionally teaching the concepts and the skills in Goal 4? And a lot of times when you ask schools what Goal 1 is, people can recite it really well. They measure it. They have data dialogues. They look at iReady, iStation, and they are always like looking at it. But when you ask, well, how do you measure Goal 4? It's kind of like, well, we'll do Panorama and see how kids do. But how do you do it intentionally? Because perseverance, for example, is a skill that can be taught. But where in your day is that actually intentionally taught to students? Or is it something that you're hoping that students learn through the course of hope, right? Like we hope that students will learn perseverance. But how are you teaching it intentionally in the same ways that you're teaching students how to read? And so that also like started to grow within Genius Hour. And the final part about Genius Hour is how do you use that time to allow teachers more collaboration time? So how can we, adults, also be creative during that time and try to think outside the box of this block of time, this block of time, this block of time, I need this number of students with this teacher, so 15 of you are going to go do Genius Hour in the Lego room, 15 of you are gonna go do mariachi, 15 of you are gonna go do sewing. How do you think outside those constraints to really develop Genius Hour as a time to free up some teachers to be able to collaborate and then have other teachers be able to collaborate during other times? How can you be creative about allowing that time? Because particularly in the elementary level, we're really strapped for time. And we're trying to think of how can we creatively schedule outside of like thinking in the boxes of synergy to be able to allow teachers time to collaborate while kids are also being creative in their work within Genius Hour. So those are some of the questions and some of the problems we're trying to solve with Genius Hour. And our panel of experts have all the answers on how to fix all of this. They are in different spectrums along the way of how long they've been involved with Genius Hour. So I think you'll hear a lot of good ideas of how to make it work. And most importantly, you'll hear that every school does it differently. And that's okay. That's the purpose of it, right? It's how do you use this unstructured time without going into panic of hearing the word unstructured? But how do you use it to fit your school and your community? And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Bernstein before we start the panel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Blakey. So first of all, I don't know if you can tell, but this is an eye infection, not a Halloween costume. So just in case you wondered, not contagious, you're all good. Dr. Blakey said everything I was going to say, how important it is. Both of us have worked together collaborating for a very long time, along with Dr. Gonzalez, and none of us have been able to crack the nut of making sure elementary teachers have dedicated time to collaborate. And this idea of building background knowledge, of having really enriching activities that also remediate for kids that might need it, all of that is proven through research to increase student learning. And before you leave tonight, when you're done hearing the experts, I'll pass out something you can take back with you that you can share with your fellow staff members that really documents the fact that if you do decide to, at semester or next year, work through your instructional council and build some kind of Genius Hour into your day, that you can be guaranteed that you're adding value to student learning. You're also going to be adding value to teacher satisfaction and lowering teacher stress. Again, that adds to student learning. So I hope that you take a moment to read this. We also have some sample schedules that Glenn Wilcox will talk about that he has for you, so you can actually see it in schedule form. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Gonzalez so he can moderate our panel. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Blakey. Thank you, Dr. Bernstein, for hosting this event. We're going to talk about time today. We're going to talk about time through the context of Genius Hour, an asset-based program to offer and facilitate student enrichment that can, with a little bit of creativity, facilitate adult time to professionalize teachers in their work. So I'm really excited. We have an awesome panel made up of 3 schools. So please help me thank Los Padillas Zuni, and Bel Air elementary schools for being brave this afternoon to share their expertise. Please help me thank them. As was alluded to earlier, all three of these schools are at different stages of implementation. Not all of these schools are top schools. So let's just put that out there right away, okay? What I'm going to ask the panel to do is I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. And I'm going to ask them to take about 60 seconds. You need to use the microphone because we're being recorded, so let me just throw that out there before I forget. 60 seconds just to share your why. Why are you a proponent? Why do you believe in Genius Hour at your site? Introduce yourself and share with us your why.
Good evening. My name is Ludy Gomez. I am the bilingual resource teacher at Los Padillas. My why, a big part of it is my passion. I get to share the things that I feel very strongly about with the students, and also what Dr. Blakely was saying, that through Genius Hour, we can provide a lot of assets to our students that they might not be able to get outside of the school time. So.
Hello, my name is Cristina Benitez de Luna. I'm the principal at Los Padillas Elementary School. I think my biggest why, I share the sentiments that Ms. Gomez just mentioned, but I also have a different perspective coming from the secondary lens. So I was a high school teacher and a high school administrator, and as we know, in high school, students get to decide electives that they are interested in. And knowing that I was coming to a school at Los Padillas where that was also possible was very exciting, not just for myself, but I also saw the excitement in families and students and in teachers, like Ms. Udi mentioned also.
Hello, my name is Samantha Schmitz. I'm the transformational coach at Los Padillas Elementary. My why for Genius Hour is really, for me, it is the best way to get students to want to come to school, to get to build community so that everybody knows each other and the kids know each other and the teachers know each other and teachers know the kids, and to really build that passion in kids and interest and inquiry and asking questions. So those are the reasons that I really believe in Genius Hour.
Hi, my name is Michael Pasek. I'm a kindergarten first grade combo teacher at Bel Air Elementary School. And I view it as an investment in building relationships with the students. I'm putting deposits in to build relationships that I may have to make a withdrawal later on. And I've gotten to know nearly every student in the school, and it's also an opportunity to help them learn how to become little human beings, how they can work together and socialize. It's a very relaxed time, it's a very enjoyable time. I always end my club, did you have fun? And if the answer isn't, I love this club, I'm doing something wrong, we got the wrong topic, or I'm not engaging them correctly.
Hi, I'm Celeste Hernandez. I teach kindergarten at Bel Air Elementary. I think my biggest why is it allows students to shine in another situation, in another environment where they might not get the opportunity. Sometimes they have trouble in their class or struggles with their teachers or their peers, and it allows them to come to another environment where they have a clean slate and they can just shine.
Hi, I'm Hannah Minolfa. I'm the principal at Bel Air. My why is I fully 100% back goal 1, but I also fully 100% back goal 4. As much as I want all of our kids to be readers and successful, I also want them to be able to adult well. I want them to be able to disagree and have a conversation and challenge each other's thinking in a way that is healthy and productive, and to be okay when they are an adult, and also joy.
My name is Glenn Wilcox. I'm the principal at Zuni. One of the tenets of our culture at the school has always been about providing extension and enrichment opportunities for our students. And we were seeing that only happening with those students who qualified for gifted. And we kept trying to find other ways to engage other kids, but we kept having cuts and cuts and cuts, and then we didn't have the people to do that. So this was our creative way of figuring out a way to provide that enrichment opportunity for all of our students, regardless of being qualified for anything. We also wanted to provide a break for teachers from the, goal 1 and goal 2 are great, and I'm all for them, but it gives teachers that opportunity to look at goal 4 and be creative in what they do and what they can offer as teaching experiences for our kids that may spark an interest in something that they're going to adult in later in life. And so that is kind of why we do it.
Hi there, I'm Jackie. I'm the school counselor at Zuni Elementary. Apropos of what everyone said, I just love the fact that we can expose these children to things they might not otherwise be able to be exposed to. For example, I've taken on Intro to German because I'm very passionate about German. So it's really cool that I can have kiddos come to me in a capacity that is not them trying to get some support. So I love it. It's fantastic.
Thank you all very much. Let me ask a question. How many years have you been running Genius Hour at Los Padillas? 7 years. How many years have you been running Genius Hour at Bel Air? 4. And how about at Zuni? Second year. So we see that there are different stages of implementation. How many of your schools are top schools, if you'll raise your hand? So you're not. So Zuni is not a top school. Bel Air and Los Padillas are. So I'm going to ask a few questions of the group to kind of tease out the essence of Genius Hour and think of your questions, because we know that we want to spend some time really hearing what your questions may be from the panel. So there's going to be time in just a little bit to ask questions from the floor. So I'm going to start with Los Padillas. You've been doing this for 7 years. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey? Some of the triumphs, some of the struggles, and maybe a day in the life of Genius Hour at Los Padillas. There's a lot there. Maybe you want to give history.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so these are very rolly chairs. Genius Hour at Los Padillas started in 2018 when we were designated as an MRI school. So it was kind of a voluntold. We had to do the Genius Hour. And so we kind of were tasked with figuring out how to make it work, right? What it was going to look like, how we were going to get the materials, who had to teach, and did they have to teach every day, and things like that. And so we really worked as a staff to figure out how we were going to do it, because none of us had any experience with it at all, and we didn't really have very many other people around who had ever done it either. So we were kind of going to figure it out. So the IC worked a lot on it, on figuring out how we wanted to go about it, which teachers had to teach. We eventually figured out that every teacher was going to teach, special ed and interventionists, support staff, myself. Everybody was going to teach Genius Hour because we really believed in having smaller class sizes. And then it kind of fell on me to figure out how we were going to do that, because we really also wanted to have student choice. But not every teacher is equipped to be in a classroom where every kid chooses a different project, right? Because that's pretty overwhelming. So we decided that each teacher we were going to survey the kids. So we surveyed the kids and the parents, figured out what the most interesting topics were to them, and then teachers kind of claimed a topic. And then some teachers had really good experience in something, like, for example, martial arts, or mariachi, or baile folklorico, or coding, right? And that might not have been on the list that people chose, but we had an expert in it, so we decided to offer that. And then I kind of came up with a way for kids to choose, right? They have a little choice sheet. And every year we kind of revisit it as an IC. We figure out, is this working? Is it not working? Are the class sizes okay? And every year we kind of come back to the same thing, where every teacher wants to teach because it's fun. Right? It's the best time of the day, right? You get the kids, they're hanging out with you, you're doing something we're all excited about. They don't push back because they asked to be there. You don't push back because you chose what you're doing. And it's great. So it's kind of evolved over the years. We've become a little more sophisticated in our choice forms. We stopped surveying people so much because we figured like it confused the kids between a survey and a choice sheet, right? That became confusing to them. We went from really, really elaborate showcases that took the teachers a lot of time to showcase to more informal showcases. So that really was the students shining and it wasn't a big dog and pony show, as they say. And we now have what we call an unshowcase, where we invite the parents to participate in Genius Hour. And that way the kids can still showcase what they're doing, but the parents can participate too. And it's not a big ask on the teachers because the teachers don't have to prepare a big presentation. So yeah. What else was on the question? Oh, yeah, so we change our Genius Hour about every 6 weeks. We kind of look at the calendar and we block out the most logical places to transition to a different class. And so we spend about 20 minutes in a staff meeting making our course list. And then I make the choice sheets, we pass them out to the kids make their choices. Luthi and I sit in my room and I shuffle them around and, oh no, that person shouldn't be with that person. And then, we make piles and we make our classes that way. Yeah, okay. I can talk forever about Genius Hour.
Thank you. So question for Bel Air. Genius Hour was something new, and you kind of had a interesting pathway there because you all chose to be a top school. How did you work with teachers to maybe come around and maybe not be intimidated by the prospect of this new thing called Genius Hour? How did you support them? How do you continue to support them in the execution, making it happen?
So my first year at Bel Air, I was there for about 6 months and then COVID hit. And so then we were virtual. And that was really fun because I told people I'm a new principal 3 years in a row because every year was different. So we were presented with the opportunity my third year, right after coming back, to change into a top school. And so I presented it to our instructional council, and every single staff member said, this is what our community needs. I had a couple of staff members who said, I don't really want to do this, but I know that this is what this community needs. And so we made the swap, we flipped. And Cesar and Kim Fink were huge supports for us. I called them and said, I have no idea what I'm doing. And they're like, oh, you just have fun with it. So we did. We met together over the summer virtually over Zoom, and we tried to figure out, like, okay, Whittier does this and Los Padillas does this, and so we're going to try this. And it didn't work. And so we made it work for us over and over and over, and we still do that. It's okay to kind of have it fall apart and to be like, these kids can't be together, we're going to switch it up. But it is something that is deeply ingrained in who we are now. Our kids will not leave our school to go to, if they move, they are like, we have to be here because I need Genius Hour. And I'm like, well, yeah, but the school that you're supposed to go to is also a Genius Hour school. And they're like, oh, okay. And we've done that. We've sent kids over, and they walk in and they're like, which club am I in? Likewise, I've had principals call and be like, your kid's having a hard time. They're saying school is boring. I'm like, well, sorry, you don't have Genius Hour. We are a little more informal. Teachers just place kids.
No, we give them choices.
We give them choices, yes, but the teachers do it themselves. So we don't do a sheet that comes to any adult and that person figures it out. The teachers ask the kids, like, first, second, third choice, and then teachers in their classroom just place them on a Google Doc. So that system tends to work for us.
Not in the same group over and over. We also make sure that they're not in the same club with the same teacher over and over, because there's kids who are like, I really love this teacher, I really want to be in their club every single time, but we got to give other kids an opportunity to also love that teacher and be in their club every single time.
That's true. What else did you ask? That's good. Okay.
So I have a question for Zuni, and they are a school that adopted Genius Hour outside the context of TOPS. So I'd be curious as to that journey, how that happened, and how you sustain and schedule Genius Hour into your day.
So what it kind of evolved over time, and Bel Air was down the street from us, and we shared a staff member who talked a lot with me about Genius Hour and what they were doing there and how they saw it affecting kids and the excitement of kids. And we were like, oh my God, we need to figure out how to do this, because that is an enrichment opportunity for all kids to participate in. But we're not a top school. We don't have that extra hour of time in our day to do that. So what we did was we worked with our schedule to find ways to provide we only do it once a week. We have not figured out a way to make it happen every day. But in our journey, we also are a project-based learning school. So the kids do project-based learning on a daily basis. So they still get some Genius Hour stuff, but it is different than we call it Wonder Wednesday. It's the last hour of the day on Wednesday, or WOW as we call it. So we tried to figure out a way to do that. So we first started by surveying our teachers about what do they have to offer, what clubs would they like to do, what students' grade levels would they like to work with, what is a cap of number of students that you can take in your club, and we started there. Then created a Google form that went out for all the students to do for each grade level, has their choices, and they get 3 choices. So they have choice number 1, choice number 2, choice number 3, so that as we're putting clubs together and everything, if a certain club is full, then they have choice 2, something else that they were interested in that we could do. So, and that all comes to me, and it's all electronic. All I have to do is cut and paste lists into other spreadsheets and put it all together. It takes me like an entire day to do, but it's well worth it for the kids in the end to have those opportunities. And it also gives us the opportunity of, we put that kid with that other kid who shouldn't have gone there, or the kid goes to the club and they're like, I absolutely hate this. Can I go to my other club? They have other options of something that they already chose. We switch every grading period. So the kids get three choices of an opportunity to do it. We don't do a showcase for our clubs, but we do a showcase for their project-based learning. So we do have them present something that is something that they've done, and that fits within our magnet thing, because we are a technology and communication magnet, so those are very important aspects of what happens with us. But again, it is totally evolving every time. Each choice, we have clubs that are seasonal. So like we have a gardening club that is not going to take place during winter because the garden isn't doing anything. And so those teachers choose to do something else. Our whole staff participates, counselor, EAs, special ed, general ed, everybody participates. But since you mentioned the collaboration thing, that kind of throws some ideas into my head of how we could possibly do some things a little bit differently. So thank you for the ideas, but that's been our journey. Finding the time and everything was the hardest part.
And as a gift from Zuni Elementary, you will leave with the sample schedule to see how you can integrate Genius Hour to non-TOPS schools' schedules now. So thank you for that and your thinking. So a question in regards to how do you facilitate background knowledge and pull out the best of the adults on campus in terms of the offerings? Who would like to take that?
I can take it if you want. Yeah. So originally, Glenn had said that I didn't have to have a club, obviously, to make sure I was available to kids, which I want to be at all times, obviously. But I was kind of in the capacity this year that I thought, okay, maybe I can offer a very small club, and if something comes up, those couple of kids that I have can join another club for the afternoon, et cetera. And so right away, what jumped to mind for me was the basics of German, because I studied abroad in Austria, and then I went to graduate school there. And so for me, like picking something to offer the kids was kind of a no-brainer, because Glenn really lets us choose what we want to specifically do. And that's really exciting because when it's Wednesday, I'm like, yes, I have my German kiddos that are coming, and so I think regarding like what the teachers can offer, I think it's actually quite easy for people to pick what they want to offer because it ends up being, what they really enjoy or their own hobby at home. Glenn offers sewing, and so I think, again, it just ends up kind of being easy because people want to offer and expose the kids to their own passions, if that makes sense. So the two teachers that do gardening's a huge part of their life, right? We have obviously, we have a Harry Potter club, and that particular teacher absolutely loves Harry Potter. So exploring the world of Harry Potter and the literature and the characters and everything like that, again, that was easy for her to offer because she's like, well, I love Harry Potter, so that's just kind of a background from my point of view.
Thank you. And just a little bit of a add-on as you maybe add Los Padillas to that point is we talk about assets from within the community a lot. So I think there's assets clearly on our staff in terms of the background knowledge that you just described. But I wonder if you have any examples of maybe community partners that help with your Genius Hour.
I was going to answer the other question. No, something that I wanted to add, being that we're now in our 7th year of doing this, of course, there's the challenge that comes up, where particular teachers feel more comfortable offering a very specific Genius Hour class. So I think something that we've done very well at our school was showcasing not just to the community, but to each other what we're doing in our different Genius Hour classes. So a quick example, Ms. Gomez here is doing drones this time around. So we're all seeing the drones, right? And I think that excites other staff members to maybe want to try something that they're not comfortable with and going beyond what they've maybe done in the past. As it comes to partners, I know that previously at Los Padillas, maybe we haven't had a staff member who had the capacity to teach baile folklorico or mariachi. So in those situations, we've had partners come into the school during that specific hour of the day and work with the teacher to be able to have those classes. And I'll give a quick example. My mom happens to be a sub, and was it last year? Last year, she was one of our long-term subs there at the school. And of course, there was an expectation that every staff member is involved, but she felt very strong about teaching baile folklorico last year. So we were fortunate to have a long-term sub who had a very specific interest. She's not a baile folklorico teacher. She's never been a dance teacher, but she used YouTube, right? And she connected with, I don't remember the school, but she connected with another school who was also offering baile folklorico. And that passion just kind of rises, right? When you're there with the kids and you're doing something fun, you're doing something exciting, something that maybe you're not able to do when you're teaching English, math, and that kind of just makes everyone really excited about being there. Did you want to add something?
Yeah. Kind of piggyback off that, you don't actually need any background knowledge to teach a Genius Hour because you can learn with the kids. So another example of that was, for some reason, yarn crafts like crochet are super popular with our kids right now. I don't know if it's a TikTok thing or I don't know where it's coming from, but they all want to learn how to crochet. Girls, boys, everybody. So when the choice sheets came back, it was like 30 kids wanted yarn crafts, and one teacher was going to teach. And teaching crochet to 30 kids is not really feasible, right? So I was like, okay, I'll try it, right? So I still don't know how to crochet, but the kids in the class were learning. And then we also kind of expanded, like, what else can we do with yarn? We did some weaving, right? So I didn't actually know anything about yarn crafts. And I just said, okay, same thing. I looked up YouTube. I went on Pinterest. I asked the kids what they wanted to make, if they know how to make something. Luckily, I had one 5th grader who actually knew how to crochet. So she's like, I'll teach everybody, right? So you just have to have the passion and then the knowledge will come after that. Another example, community partners though. Beginning of first year we were there, parents really wanted martial arts. We had nobody who knew anything about how to teach martial arts, but someone had an aunt or something like that who worked at Walmart, and Walmart actually gave them time off from work, like paid time, to volunteer and teach martial arts at our school, right? So there are people out there who can give their time to come help teach. And they may not be able to show up every day, right? But they could come, inspire your kids in a project, and then the teacher would just continue on for the rest of the days of the week or whatever. So that's another example.
I have another question. Passionate group. I have another question in regards to, there's a lot that's said about, I don't want to miss Genius Hour. Maybe attendance went up. Students are invested in school in a different way. Bel Air, can you speak to maybe student outcomes in terms of how have you seen a shift in students wanting to come to school?
I think the one thing that we see is that children are upset when they get picked up early. Kids don't want to miss Genius Hour, and at our school, it's at the end of the day. So that's the one time where you see their families and they're like, oh, we don't want to go home early. Especially if they get picked up right before and they're like, that's a sad day for them. I don't know about school-wide trends for the whole day.
We will have kids who get picked up at 2 for a dentist appointment and are back by 3 when Genius Hour starts. Like, it's 2 hours of school and they're like, we are not missing. And part of that is the relationship that they've built with those adults, and part of it is just the club. But I also think you guys were talking about engagement. It doesn't, and time. Time is a big one, right? Like, we don't want to give up our time. It does not matter how good your lesson is if your kids are not there or if they don't want to be there. But the second they want to be there, you've won. Like, so when you are building your garden, that time when you get to science and you're talking about the water cycle or whatever, they have information and you have just saved yourself time. So you're not giving up or losing anything, but you're gaining joy. And that's a huge piece, because we should all love our jobs. We do have the greatest job ever, and it's hard. But if we don't love showing up, and if our kids don't love showing up, it doesn't matter how great your planning is, right? So that school-wide trend, our kids show up for Genius Hour, and they show up for the adults who love them. They show up. I mean, sometimes we're like, oh, hey, you have lunch detention with this other adult, and they're like, yes, that's my favorite adult. That's huge. That's huge, right? So it has been good for us, and our attendance has gone way up.
Great. Want to spend a little bit of time and answer some of your questions. So we are going to have the microphone float the floor. And if you have a question, would you please raise your hand? And we will answer your question. Try to answer your question.
Thank you. I have one and my partner here has one.
Maybe it's the same question.
No, it's not. So I'm wondering how you work out special ed minutes. Is there an issue with that? Do we have to do amendments? I'm only asking because we did something very similar last year, and my special ed team kind of had the twitches because they felt that the kids were meeting their IEP minutes. Can you talk to that?
I think one of the things that people have to wrap their mind around is that enrichment is remediation, right? So if they're getting those experiences for gardening or Lego, like building a Lego set that they've never ever been able, they see it at Target and they see it at Walmart and they're like, oh my God, that is the holy grail, right? If they get those experiences and they get to be able to talk with their peers and they learn all the vocabulary of all of the things, that in itself is remediation. That should count to something.
And the other thing with that is that when we built it into our schedule, it doesn't affect our literacy and our math blocks at all. It does not take any time away from the core instruction, which is what most of our special ed students have their goals in. And it is just part of our enrichment. It is part of their instruction, part of their engagement with peers. It is part of their IEP. It's not extra or taking away from. It is part of their school experience.
I have a question on, is it grade level specific or do you mix up grade levels? Number one. Okay, you go. I don't want you to lose track because I got a lot of them. Do you want me to go again?
Keep going.
Okay, and I also work at a bilingual, I know. We're a bilingual school and we have 2 classes at every grade level. So it's, English is here, bilingual's over here. Do you mix your bilingual kids with your English-speaking kids? Because I think it's really sad at my school that these kids get into kindergarten and they're the same kids all the way through. They don't ever, and you go.
Take it from her. We do, but she, okay.
What was the first one?
Mixing grade levels.
Oh, mixing.
Oh, okay. So with us in particular, we have grade bands. So we have a K2 group. And if you're a K2 teacher, you will have a K2 group. And then obviously a 3-5, group. And same thing if you're a 3-5 teacher, that's what you'll get. And that's just so we can have an even number of courses for the littles as we do for the bigs. If you are a very brave soul, you can say, I'm okay taking K5, which by the way I am. So that's how we do it with the grade levels, and then just splitting them up. And the way, and because again, All Certified does one, we also end up with very small groups. With kinder, if there's a particular group that has like a higher amount of kinders, we'll put EAs in there. That just kind of helps with that. For dual language, because we are a dual language school, with us in particular, we are 50-50 across the board. So everybody's together. And then it's up to the teacher, like they are welcome to do it in Spanish if they want to do the class in Spanish or in both languages. So on that one, it's just, we encourage that they do it in Spanish. But no, and there we have the kids mixed, but that's pretty much on a daily basis. So.
So with our particular school, I think it's a unique situation because, again, across the board, we're 50-50. So the whole school is 50-50. However, if you are a dual language school that has a strand, I would strongly encourage you to mix the kiddos up. I mean, that only adds value to that group, to that Genius Hour, to what you're exposing the kiddos. We're talking about goal 4, right? So, I mean, I feel like that only adds value to what you're doing.
We are also a bilingual school, and we also have a district special ed program, and we mix everybody up. And so today, one of my little guys from our IGS program was picked up, and one of my other kids was walking back to class, and he turned and said, "Hey, see you later, bud." And that piece, we have to live in a world where you are used to everybody no matter what. And our kids don't care if you only speak Spanish and you only speak English. Somebody's gonna translate and you're fine. I have a 4-year-old at our school, and the other day she asked me, how do you say cat? And I said gato, and she said, no, it's el gato. But this is because she is experiencing these from the kids around her, because she is allowed to. So mix them all up.
Agree. Mix them up as much as you can. They were talking about relationships earlier. So I have fourth and fifth grade teachers that do a club that is for kinder and first grade. So they're with fifth graders all day, and then they get that little bit of time with those younger kids. But guess what? Those younger kids are going to be coming to them, and they already know that teacher. So we have no teachers at our school that don't know, at least by face, every kid in that school and have that relationship with them. And like she was saying, when you have that kid, you've won, because that kid builds that relationship that's not, you're not expecting them to read and not expecting them to do math, which are the things that they struggle with. You're doing something fun with them. So that is the person who is like the golden gem of their eye. And if you have a problem with that kid, go get that teacher, and they will do anything for that other teacher. It's all about building those relationships within the entire school community. It also builds the community with the kids. I have classes with fifth graders and kindergartners that are clubs, and those fifth graders, you know, they're out at recess and they run over to the kindergarten playground and they're high-fiving the kindergartners through the fence, and they build that relationship with them. The kid falls and hurts themselves. Oh, there's my friend from club who can help me get to the nurse that I need to do. So everybody knows everybody, and it just builds that amazing culture and amazing relationships.
I had a follow-up question on the special ed, because I get that enrichment is remediation, but if it says on their IEP that it's special ed time, it has to be provided by a special education teacher. So I'm curious how that looks on a service schedule, how you're classifying it. Is it classified as special ed minutes? Is it classified as general ed minutes? Is it classified as inclusion? Who's providing it? Just to make sure that we're covered legally. And same thing for students with safety minutes who always have to have support when they're in a general ed setting. Because pretty much all of our EAs are with students who have safety minutes, so they wouldn't be able to drop class sizes by teaching their own clubs, because they would have to be doing push and support for other programs.
I think Glenn talked about how their time doesn't mess with ELA or math, so I'm guessing it's more science and social studies. So probably is gen ed time. So it's probably the gen ed piece. So our kids who have medical safety supports, and EA does go with them. We have EAs who don't want to run their own club, and they're not required to. We don't ever expect that.
Classified as on the service schedule, the Genius Hour.
So ours is part of a top school, so our service schedule looks a little bit different, but it would be something that you probably would have to get with your ESDS with, but it's starting small, right? So you're not saying like, hey, we're gonna do this every single day for 30 minutes. You're talking about starting small. So make it work with what you have. So if that kid is in special ed, maybe they stay with the special ed teacher, and the special ed teacher does something they're really interested in. If they can go to gen ed with their safety supports, do what they're interested in, but start small and start with what you can do.
And like I said earlier, it's for most of them, it's part of their social skills. So if they have a social skills goal, it can fit underneath that part of it, because it is about being in different settings, learning different things, learning social emotional skills, life skills, anything along those lines. But like she said, I would never send a kid who had a safety person with them, never not have a safety person with them go. And I definitely have kids who tear things up, and they actually do better in their clubs than they do in their regular classes.
I would be really interested in working with you at your school or other people at their schools to figure this out with the special ed department, so that we can include all our special ed kids in Genius Hour clubs. That may be something we need to work on together as partners with the district special ed department, but I think it can be done.
So I'm going to kind of piggyback on that. Very similar to Zuni, we had a Genius Hour a couple years at our school. We were not a top school. And those were conversations that came up about how do we meet the minutes, how does that work? And so it's a really fine balance of going back to the kind of think of like, there's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. There's the letter of the IEP and the spirit of the IEP. When a new student comes in from a different district, we have to adopt their IEP. And we do our best to follow what the spirit of the IEP is to make sure that we're meeting their minutes with what we know their needs are. And so when we have a student coming in or we're putting a new program or a new opportunity in place, we continue to do our best to meet the spirit of the IEP, and then we slowly adapt the IEP when we're meeting to make sure that it matches up with the minutes so we're legally in compliance with the minutes. But at the end of the day, are you following the spirit of the IEP to ensure that we are allowing students to have the least restrictive opportunities possible with their peers?
I also had a question about funding. A lot of the projects, when we did our Genius Hour, there were a lot of really great ideas and things that people wanted to do, but who pays for that? We had a couple of solutions for it, but I'm interested in how you guys handle that.
So again, we were an MRI school, so we actually had funds specifically for that. But I will say, purchasing is very slow, right? So most of the time when we finally got around to getting the materials we had ordered, the Genius Hour had already passed. So we became very creative of doing projects that didn't cost money, right? So there's certain things like coding. The computers are there. You don't have to purchase anything. And all sorts of digitally based things. They could do Canva, they could do digital art, they could do animation, they can do videography. So there's many things that can be done with zero money because we already have our tech and we have a lot of tech support in APS. Things that were research based, so a lot of research, and then really it was just paper and presentation. And being creative with the materials we have on campus. And also physical education, dance, music, a lot of those things don't take money. Things like drones, robots, that does. There's also Donors Choose, which is also sometimes faster than going through purchasing process.
If I can also add to that, so we were fortunate that at the beginning we had money to do this, but we transitioned into having no money to do this. And that was a conversation that we had with the staff, just making sure that we're all aware that we're going to continue this. However, we need to think creatively on how we do this. Those of you who are community schools, I would also strongly suggest and encourage you all to tap into your partners. There's a lot of money out there. I know that the APS Foundation also has, grants that they're able to provide to support these initiatives. There's a lot of opportunities. I think you just have to think a little bit more creatively about this with your IC, with your staff on how you can support this and be sustainable.
That was a huge question for us. So a lot of our clubs are based on supplies and materials that we just have around the school. So a lot of the things are paper things, little things made out of aluminum foil, a Harry Potter one made out of string paint and a chopstick from a restaurant. I'm a sewer, so I pulled out all of my fabric stash. And so the kids cut up like little scraps of fabric that I have, except for I do have one of my students, a couple of the girls are making dresses. And so they went with their parents and picked out their own fabric and brought that. But it was hard to do. So I did Donors Choose. Elementary schools do not have sewing machines. And so I did Donors Choose and immediately had somebody that paid for 2 sewing machines for our school to use for that club. The APS Foundation, unfortunately, their window just closed last Friday for their foundation grants. But I wrote a foundation grant this year to support all of the clubs with things that we need to do robotics, to do more sewing, because 2 sewing machines does not a good sewing club work. just some of the stuff that we aren't able to purchase with school funds, like a cooking class. There are things for cooking that we can't buy with regular funds, that we have to find funds from outside of the school. Our teachers love it so much for some things that they actually spend money out of their own pockets. I spend a lot of money on stuff for my sewing club for those kids. So, some of it is that which is not the way to go, and we don't want that to be the norm. But we find ways, like I have a whole teacher who just does paper crafts. There's paper in schools, and stuff. So things that we already have, but there are other ways to find the funding.
Also, ask your community people because they want to be involved. I think we forget how often people are eager to help the kids in Albuquerque. So we did a club where our kids made blankets for the UNM Children's Hospital. And so the teacher went to Joanne's and just said, like, oh, we're making these blankets. And they gave her all of the things that she needed. And we still have extra. So Glenn has his fancy sewing club and we have rocks and paint. But our kids want, I know, we're real fancy. Our kids want flag football and soccer and a lot of the things that kids just want to do the things that often don't cost a whole lot of money.
Everybody wants to answer your question. Rock, paper, scissors.
Mine's quick.
Yeah, and some of the clubs, again, don't take anything, like Run Club. That was the most popular one we had, right? That doesn't take anything. It's like our coach running it and the kids running. And even with German, like Duolingo's free and we play Uno and I make the kids say the color and number in German. We even talked about walking over to the Swiss Alps Bakery, though they just closed. But we have like these fun ideas. And, even one of the parents reached out to me and was like, oh, well, because the Swiss Alps Bakery closed and you guys can't walk over for German Club, like let me know if you want me to buy like German pastries one day or, so again, not all of the clubs require money and others, you can get really creative and there are a lot of resources out there.
So also for those more expensive things like robots, EdTech has kits you can check out. So reach out to APS as well. And Explora does workshops, and oftentimes they will give you things. So I walked away with 3D pens when I went to a workshop. Watch for flyers, because sometimes there's someone in the district who gives away drones if you go to their training. I can't remember his name. So keep your eye out, because people are giving away tech because they've written grants, right? And so you just kind of have to keep your eyes open, your ears open, and see what's going on around the district too.
Thank you. This next question is really for Glenn, and the rest of you might be able to help answer it. We also did, like I mentioned, a Genius Hour before not being a top school, and after that first year, the teachers were like, "Yay, we love it, but we're done." And it's because they were like, we don't have enough prep time. We don't have time to truly make sure that we feel comfortable in doing it. And there's just not enough time in the day. How have you kept the morale of your staff up, not having that additional time as a top school does to continue it for a second year?
I think what has worked for us is we only do it once a week. Just to be perfectly honest, it was once a week. I think a lot of it is they hear it from the kids. The kids are the ones that keep it going. They are super excited about it. They are the ones that stop them in the hall and are like, what are we doing this week? What are we doing this week? And I think that they have kept the momentum going. Instructional Council made it part of our 90-day plan. Because enrichment is what we need to be doing. And so we made it part of our 90-day plan, so it was part of the goals for the school. And we just always kind of keep it in our 90-day plan as one of our action steps of our 90-day plan, because that works for both math and literacy.
This kind of piggybacks off of your question, Heidi. With elementary school being bell to bell and so busy, how does Genius Hour build collaboration between teachers? Like, what does that look like? Because I can't picture it,
So we do have the luxury of being in top school and having that extended time to meet. I have seen schedules, though, where they've creatively set the schedule so that, let's say, 3/4 of the staff is teaching Genius at one time and 1/4 of the staff is getting a collaboration time, like gets to meet as a grade level and work on long-term planning or something. And then, so you kind of schedule it. We don't do it because we have the time, but I think if it were at a school that I didn't have the time, I would figure out a way, maybe 5th grade doesn't teach on Fridays, and on Fridays everybody else absorbs those kids somehow into their clubs, right? And every day of the week, a different grade level, that sort of thing. I've seen that done before, but we haven't done it. It's just an idea.
Like I said, that was kind of one of the first things that I heard today that made me think about that. We, fortunately enough, are kind of a small school. So we work out, I have 2 grade levels that have their pullouts at the same time every day. So every day, those grade levels have collaboration built in. And they have over 20 minutes more than what the negotiated agreement says for collaboration. And we still have an hour every week that I get to collaborate with them and still maintain and stay within what we have to have for them. But I'm thinking, as we were sitting here, I'm like, oh, that would, I could, like, every time that we rotate, I could have, pick out teachers that would have that rotation off and would be able to collaborate with each other. And we would just have less choices for the kids, but it would give some of that collaboration time for them to be able to do that and have that. Yeah, so I was just sitting here going, oh God, how can I make that happen? Because that's a really great idea. So that may be a next rotation or a year down the road so that we look at it and have it built in so that everybody gets that opportunity at some point during the year.
And that's what I've seen too, is they leave 2 grade levels off each rotation. So the Genius Hour classes are a little bit larger, but every rotation for 6 weeks, one group is on collaboration, and then it rotates through.
That is exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you. So I'm not going to put my dear principals on the spot, but I think I have a question that I want to challenge them for. We are a large school, we're a special education school, and we are a non-Title I school. And so I would like to know a cost, and this is gonna sound crazy, a cost per student, honestly, for the year, because there are materials and things that are being purchased. And so I would like to know that information, and if there is any potential support for schools in our unique situation. I'm not gonna put you on the spot for that cost per student. But specifically, though, it was about the question on the flyer. It said, provide staff individual prep and collaboration time. And some staff at my school were really concerned about this would be yet another prep to have to plan for. And so how have you supported the teachers in that? And really, honestly, I think it's a buy-in question for a lot of our schools.
So I think I need everybody in upper leadership to close their ears, because we love money and we love having money, but we hardly used any of our Genius Hour funds. We were like, oh shoot, we have to spend this by February. What do you guys want to buy? Because our kids just want regular things: flag football, soccer, basketball, running club, German, Duolingo, games. So the cost per student for us was minimal. It was experiences. While you may not have the funds, you have the people. You have the parents who would volunteer 1 or 2 days, and I think that's another easy win. If you get 2 parents to volunteer once a month, then you can have those teachers be off, right? Get them their background checks. Now all of a sudden they're running Duolingo club or Spanish club or whatever. I think the more you can capitalize on your community, which you have a really strong community, it makes it even easier to build.
how was I going to answer that? So when I did my grant that I turned in last week, it came out to about $40 per student because it actually does calculate it out by student. So it came out to about that. As far as what we wanted for future, and that was with a $10,000 grant, which is a drop in the bucket sometimes for that. But again, like she was saying, the kids want things that don't really cost anything. Time is the number one thing, is the number one cost. It's minute per student. And so when I was coming up last year, we were bell to bell. It took me so long to figure out how to make it happen. And I was keeping my fingers crossed and hoping beyond hope that I could figure out how to get it into this year's schedule as well. With our our start and end time change and all of that, I'm like, oh my God, is this going to work? And so I had thought up ideas where primary did it at this time of the day, intermediate did it at that time of the day. And so we were trying to figure out any way we could possibly have it happen. And we were able to get it so it's the whole school, which is super important to us because it's that building relationships across the school. We also, when you look at it that way, we pulled a time every day that would normally be our social studies and science time, and that's kind of when it sort of hits. But we do project-based learning, so we don't call it science and social studies time. It's project-based learning time, and what better way to do a project than through Genius Hour?
So regarding prep time, we have a bunch of prepackaged clubs, a club in a box. So I wanted to do perler beading. I had never done perler beading before. I picked up the box, took it to my room, watched a video. I'm now a master of perler beading. We've also leveraged fuse beads. Oh, we put them together. So instructional council worked together to plan what the kids wanted. So from a teacher's perspective, the prep time was minimal. Also, I've been able to take advantage of the 3rd and 5th grade clubs for like clay and building slime. I talked to the teacher, here are the supplies, here's what you do. I put together a slime club in about 10 minutes, right? And we're building slime and the kids are having a blast and it's not a burden, right? It's really easy to do.
I think that's the most important thing, is it doesn't have to be one more thing for teachers to do. Like, if it's easy, I'm all about it, right? If we have Lego Club, cool. Like, that takes nothing from me to plan, right? I'm like, here's the Legos, be creative. Or slime or something like that I think next time I'm gonna do beading. We have a ton of beads and a ton of like strings. I'm like, here's the beads, here's the strings, kids, go to town. The easier, the simpler, the better.
And then I just want to add that when Dr. Gonzalez, Dr. Blakey, and Dr. Me, sorry, we're all trying to put this together. One of the things that I did was I researched a lot about these two things coming together. What does Genius Hour provide for the students? And you can see it provides a lot for the staff. But what does collaboration provide for the staff? And one of the things that I learned in the research is professional satisfaction is increased a great deal when professionals have time to collaborate together. And so one of the things that you might find, if your teachers are willing, is that these two things go together to build community and satisfaction among staff, and that's basically what I found in the research.
I was going to speak more to like planning, like if you have more of a academic, if you will, sort of Genius Hour or Wonder Wednesday class like I do. I feel like I really actually was like freaking out and kind of over prepping. You know, I'm like printing out all these German things for them to do, and they're like, can we just like play a game and use German? And I'm like, that's a great idea. Like, let's just do Uno and we can learn colors and numbers, you know, and things like that. So I think I was trying to really over prepare for this quote, like academic sort of hour. And in reality, I'm kind of like making it up as I go, and they're loving it. And they're the ones that are also coming up with awesome ideas too. So I think it doesn't have to be this like perfect set lesson plan if you are doing more of like an academic sort of hour. I think, I just have this idea in my head and I'm going to run with it. So I'm like, today I really want to show them a bunch of German music that I love. And we're like having this German dance party in my room. And, so it doesn't have to be like, okay, for the first 15 minutes, I'm teaching numbers and the second 15, if that makes sense.
And the principal is teaching sewing during that time, so he's not coming to ask you for your lesson plan anyway.
Because he's doing his own lesson plans. So what we did, one of the ways that I sold it to my staff was because they were like, oh my God, it's going to be so much extra planning, so much extra prep that we have to do. I'm like, you do it for 9 weeks. You have to come up with 9 lessons. And you do the same 9 lessons the next time. And you do the same 9 lessons the time after that. You do it once, one and done. You don't have to plan it again.
Because, so how Glenn's explaining how they do it is the teacher keeps doing the same thing, the kids rotate. So at his school, they plan one rotation, and then they get new kids, and so they just repeat what they did again.
We're going to take one more question, and then we're going to move to start wrapping up.
Thank you. I think hearing some of the other comments, maybe some of us are having the same ahas all of a sudden, but can you give us some ideas about what are the lessons that you guys are doing? What are the clubs that you're doing? Because a lot of staff is thinking, I'm going to be teaching this big thing and I need these lesson plans and it's all of this. And all of a sudden, some of it sounds like, oh, this is creative makerspace. Here's some supplies. I don't know what you're going to make. I'm waiting to see what you're going to do. And is that the case of what you guys are doing, or is it more lessons kind of based?
So I don't think necessarily it's lesson based. It's, like we were talking, a little bit more unstructured. It's giving the kids an experience. Like if you're doing the Legos, yeah, you really do. Just here are some Legos. You can give them some guidance. Today we're going to build houses kind of thing. I do I do a lot of one. So one of my genius hours is Minecraft, and for a lot of it is them playing on Minecraft. And then because we have a wildlife sanctuary and we're also environmental STEM school, like now you're going to build a sanctuary in Minecraft, but it's not where like today we're doing this, today we're doing this. It's not where you're having a lesson plan objectives every single day. It is exploration. That's the big thing. But as far as ideas, like I said, like I do martial arts because I train martial arts in my personal life. So when I came to the school, they said, and I never heard Genius Hour, they're like, you want to teach a Genius Hour? What's that? You get to teach something? I asked, can I do martial arts? You have to have a leader who's very brave and says, sure, go teach your kids how to throw each other around. But I did it. And so, but it really comes, and with the prepping, it kind of eliminates that feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to make all these things, because you're doing something you actually are interested in, and it's like, yes, let's do this. I don't know what it's gonna look like, because I had never done it that way, but you learn as you go. The kids love it. They're exposed to something they couldn't, do other times. So it works. The other one that I do was drones, like they were saying. Same thing, by chance, Samantha invited me to a drone PD. We went, they gave us free drones. Let's teach a drone class. It's just like, this is what we do.
Well, let's give
I think it is, sorry, real quick. I think it is very organic, and we have a little more than a third of our elementary schools that are currently doing Genius Hour now, and all of them look different. A lot of them are connected to the teacher's passion, so it does end up being something that they like to do. So I've seen yoga in different, I've seen dance, I've seen a lot of Minecraft. I saw Marvel comics. So it's a lot of it is based on like what the teacher is passionate about, and then it draws the kids, which is, I think Hannah talked about really well. That's that connection to the student is then connected to a teacher in the school that they might not have even known prior. It's not their teacher, but hey, we both have this love for superheroes. And so it connects them in a different way. So, and I think what Glenn was talking about too is that the teacher keeps doing the same thing and the kids get to rotate through. So it does look different. Some of the other schools, it's based more on their community assets because they do have community partners coming in to do some of these Genius Hour classes when the teachers collaborate. So like every Friday, they have enough people come in that then the teachers collaborate during that time. So it just depends on your particular community. That's, you know, and I'm glad we had 3 very different school communities talk about how they do it, because there's not a right and a wrong way to do it. It really is the adults becoming like Genius Hour time for themselves as well. So I do want to thank everybody for sharing their experience with us today. And I also encourage you to think small, like Glenn said. You know, just start even once a week for 30 minutes and see how it works. And then you know, you can build it creatively through there. Because previously TOPS was very different because they were on a longer day. But now actually bell to bell, all of these schools are on this, not the same exact schedule, but they're on this, they all have the same amount of time during the day. So how they're playing around with it varies, but all of these schools up here have the same number of instructional hours during the school day. Student time. Yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask any of them, and come visit a school if you'd like. Again, we have about 1/3 of our elementary schools that do have a Genius Hour. And Dr. Bernstein also passed out a paper. You're welcome to take more if you wanted to share it with your instructional council as well. So thank you so much for your time, and big thank yous to the panels. I can't wait to see the dresses at Zuni. That's really cool. So thank you, everybody.